this thing, like radar, except it's the main cable. Oh, do you?
I just want to make sure.
Just out there. Yeah, I'm just putting on answer.
No, talk to
Sit in my office the whole time.
There you go.
I'm afraid I'm gonna catch his hair in a bun.
It's all right, if you do this, you gotta slow down a little bit. No, we'll get there. It wouldn't be the worst thing that's ever
I do
happened.
love your hair. Thank you.
I decided, you know, like, I left the company like a few years ago.
I just saw it. It's 6 o'clock. Tuesday, the next sign-in sheet.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'll start the recording.
Okay, that would be great. I appreciate the help. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna start the meeting tonight and open up on agenda 1, public comments. I have Daniel Bauer who wants to, talk about, agenda items 1 and 3. Did you mean 1? Was it a different one? Do you wanna make a public comment and talk about agenda item 3? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Okay.
So, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to you public servants that are here tonight. And I wanted to thank you for being the public servants that we elected. I also want to thank you, Megan and Linda, for y'all's effort in getting our mailboxes. This has been one of the most horrific, arduous journeys I've ever seen in my life, and I do this for a living. And at every turn, it seems like there's always been something else that comes out, something else that becomes an obstruction and gets in the way of us having our mailboxes in a timely manner. I do custom mailboxes, and it takes 6 to 8 weeks maximum for custom mailboxes. These mailboxes are right off the shelf. The one thing that I have seen and heard and been told even by the folks at Intermark is that the obstruction, unfortunately, has been you, Catherine. We asked for them to be delivered to my house, which is catty corner to where they'll be put in this next weekend. And Intermark has told me on 2 different occasions that they are not allowed to deliver them to where they're gonna be placed. Instead, we're gonna have to come all the way over to wherever the storeroom is, pick them up, and then take them over there, which is not an expedient use of our time. We've gotten together a bunch of neighborhood volunteers to make this happen, to save our district money. And every step of the way, it's been an issue. So I appreciate your effort, because I know you guys have busted your backsides to get us what we need. But I really wish that the obstruction and the constant obstacles would be stopped so we can make stuff effectively happen for our neighbors, okay? I can't say enough how important it is that it seems like there's some people that have lost their way about what a public servant is. You're supposed to be serving us as a constituents in this neighborhood, okay? We elected you for that purpose.
Time.
Okay, okay, now you wanna talk about agenda item 3, report from the district engineers?
Yes. So my only question about this is quite simply, so we're paying more bills that were engineered fixes or, stuff that was done by the engineers. And it's come to my attention that some of the folks that have been in this meeting, the gentleman that's supposed to be the engineer, in fact, is not an engineer. He's basically a consultant. So I am trying to figure out why we don't just require our engineers to be in the meetings and save us about 6 times the amount of money that we're paying every time we have consultants come. This has kind of been one of those boondoggle things that I think that we at a local level should be able to fix to save us money as taxpayers. We've spent way too much money on things we shouldn't be spending money on. And so I think that it would be in the best interest, as y'all being public servants, to handle this for your constituency in a more cost-effective means. Okay, and if you like, I will be happy to help you streamline a lot of these processes, and I won't charge you for that.
Thank you. Okay, and Gerald Burgess, you would like to make a public comment and talk to agenda items 2 and 6.
Yes. So, number 2 is about the overall financial statements. Is that okay? Number 2 is talking about,
The bookkeeper report, yeah.
it's on
Yes.
my address, is the overall financial statements. Okay. Make sure. Okay.
Go ahead.
So, Director 5, over the past 4 years, with the use of taxpayers' money, you have not produced any evidence / proof to provide any documents for public consumption that can be used in a court of law that can confirm or corroborate any of your allegations of fraud or malfeasance. No legal jurisdiction has issued anyone, has indicted anyone on any crimes, on anything you've alleged. Remember, you lost a 200-page lawsuit against the MUD. Your legal acumens appear to be very limited. But MUD board meetings are not courts of law, nor are MUD directors, judges, DAs, or prosecuting attorneys. So why do you insist on treating both as such? All our vendors, constituents, and directors are human beings and Americans, and they need to be treated as such. As they say, proof is in the pudding. But you have failed to serve up one bowl of pudding to any of your constituents regarding any of your allegations. Our MUD has gotten a reputation of trial by innuendo, unsubstantiated allegations, hearsay, gossip, and rumor. What is the goal? What has this accomplished? Why does everyone who does not agree with you have a target on their back? Not everyone is a crook, especially the ones who don't agree. This needs to stop. That's my comment. So I'm gonna go to 2.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna follow up on my comment on Monday with regards to that audit financial statement. that most external auditors' engagement letters do not directly address fraud, but engagement letters do address the need for adequate internal controls because they are very important in preventing fraud. These internal controls are seen by CPAs as important tools used by the MUD to prevent fraud. Our WTC number one CPA indicated no weaknesses in our internal controls. They said they are excellent, and that's why we have not incurred any financial fraud over the past 20 years. No CPA firm would issue an unqualified opinion, which is the good one, on a MUD's financial statement without strong internal controls. And that is why our CPA firm has always given our MUD such opinions on our financial statements, in part due to the excellent internal control process. It seems to be misleading to imply that our MUD does not have processes in place to prevent fraud, but you are the only ones who can do it. MUD CPAs indicated the engagement letter does not directly require the CPA to be responsible for fraud. But you wanted the MUD CPA to agree to your quote findings of fraud, which he refused to do. It appears to be that you're trying to get the MUD CPA to collaborate in your findings of fraud. I totally disagree with that kind of behavior. That is, all for that one. And then the last one, I just want to say, I don't have it written down. I'm on the audit, the advisory parts committee, and we're conducting a survey. I would encourage everyone to take the survey. It's very easy, very simple. We really do need everybody's input because we were trying to determine how we would like to organize the parts. And input from all the constituents we feel is important. So it doesn't take very long, just go, this is the website, right? You just go to the website, fill it out. You can also go to any part and use your cell phone. And I'm not very good at this, but there's some kind of little box on there. You just download the app, and I think you can take the survey while you walk. So please, everyone, take the survey. It ends Monday. So time to thank you.
Okay, so Shannon Bauer, did you just want to make a public comment, or did you have an agenda item?
This is a general item, just a non-agenda item.
And just a public comment? Okay.
Yes. Okay. I'm serving you each of you a letter of intent to make a claim on your public surety bond. Every elected official is required to be bonded, and their bond company is required to stand in for surety that you will not violate your oath of office. You have violated your oath of office. As a matter of procedure, I am obligated to give you an opportunity to correct. You have 5 days to rectify the situation as prescribed in the letter of intent, or a claim will be made on each of your bonds. This is your personal bond. It's a bond agreement, and the expenses of its investigation and the claim are yours individually for your individual actions and cannot be charged to district taxpayers. Thank you.
Okay, Tina Flores, you want to make a public comment? You're full of pudding, Gerald.
On Monday night, Gerald Burgess presented Megan Udo's argument once again that Linda Fogg lost her lawsuit. For those that don't know, Gerald is on Megan's work committee, her Amwana Club, and her Amwana ACC. It stands to reason she would gaslight him because she has never been one to accept responsibilities for her actions. Megan, if you would have showed Linda the Amwana record she asked to see 3 years ago, this MUD district would never have a lawsuit filed against them. Don't you get it? It's not about you. You, Gerald, and your Amwana friends, and this board should consider what the rest of us have come to realize. If Linda had filed a frivolous lawsuit, as as you would like people to believe, then it would stand to reason that the judge would have awarded the MUD the legal fees they asked for. She didn't do that though, did she? Have you ever considered that, Megan? Do you think that the honorable judge didn't consider that this lone person was willing to fight for the rights of 6,000 people she didn't even know, on her own dime, and that perhaps she viewed her cause as just? No, of course you didn't think of that because it doesn't fit your narrative. Who paid for your legal defense, Megan, Beth, and Catherine? And who paid to defend your private club and Juana? The people did. You've demonstrated by your actions that you support trampling on the rights of the people and have justified in your own mind that without doing so, we'd be living in the Wild West. There is nothing further from the truth. You just want control and power. What Linda did is fight for the people of this MUD district. It is unfortunate that you have to be a victim in order to protect people through the court of law, but that is the law. What helps me sleep at night is knowing that she will not stop trying to protect the people, and that your sticks and stones won't stop her. She was voted onto this board because she was willing to stand up for the corruption and protect the people, not serve her own interests. You and the rest of this board could learn from her if you would just set aside your personal agendas. November 2022 can't get here soon enough, and I'd like to add, Megan, that this is not about your feelings. And your question to the special counsels the other night about your feelings, get out of your feelings. No one
Okay.
cares about your feelings.
Okay, David Flores, you wanted to make a public comment? And speak on agenda items 2 and 5.
I'm just gonna skip the public comment. I think Tina, did
Okay.
a very well job.
2 and 5.
Bookkeeper report. I'm very interested in knowing what bills got paid this last month. Since we didn't have a board meeting in January, how did the bills get paid? Did bills get paid? This district has never paid bills without coming to a board meeting. So I would like to know why bills got paid. Did bills get paid? Can you answer yes or no? Simple question. I guess we'll find out in the bookkeeper report, and we'll hear what you guys have to say on that topic. Number 5. The MS4 community outreach is here. I hope we get the MS4 in on time this year. I hope we hold Infomark accountable for if they don't submit it on time. Purchase of meters and endpoints. I don't see why we need to purchase endpoints when, according to Infomark, we had to wait to install a certain amount before we bought endpoints. I think it's something we can hold off on. There's still a lot of issues, I believe, with it. I think we should hold off on it. That's it. That's what I gotta say.
Thank you. Okay, so I will now close, agenda item 1, the public comments, for the meeting, and we'll move on to, agenda item 2, the bookkeeper's report.
Alright, and I've handed out the copies of the report if anyone, public wants to right here. And I'll just quickly address the question about the payment of the bills and invoices last month. They're included on the financials, starting on page 15. We had, believing that there would be a meeting, we had prepared all of the checks and payments for the month, and they were reviewed by the Bills and Invoices Committee, and the decision was made to go ahead and release those once they had been approved, with the understanding that they would be presented for formal approval at this board meeting. So when we get to that section, we'll discuss that. Starting on
Michael, could I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
Just to clarify? We have, in place an emergency order, that's related to COVID. And since the meeting was canceled due to COVID concerns, that order empowered, Catherine as board president to pay the bills too. So you're bringing them back to the board, but she actually had authority, and I talked to her at the time to make sure that everybody got paid. So that order's still in effect.
So on page 5 of the financials, you can see that the district is running almost 30,000 behind budget on revenue for the month, but ahead 26,000 for the year. The bulk of that was property tax collections. It's difficult to predict from year to year in what months people will pay. They're required to pay by the end of January. Quite a few will choose to pay earlier in December, but quite a lot. And so this year we received payments earlier than we typically did. So December looks short, but we're actually ahead of projections for the year thus far by 44,000. The district will almost certainly end up ahead of budget at the end of the year, but we probably won't end up that far ahead. That'll draw back because a lot of people that would have tended to pay a bit later apparently went ahead and paid on time this year. Also on page 5, you can see that the district is running about 30,000 better than budget on operating administrative expenses for the month, about 34,000 for the year. And on page 6, in the operations and maintenance section, it shows that we're about 58,000 better than budget, but it appears that the 52, it's showing 52.8 better than budget on the fire protection expense, but the expense for that actually, I apparently put in the wrong month into February, so I need to go back and correct that. That check is in the packet, so we are paying it. I believe the amount's $52. We can look that up, but that puts us very close to budget on that line item as expected. So instead of being about 58,000 ahead, we're about 5,000 ahead, better than budget on operating and maintenance expenses. And for the year, that puts us about 30,000 better. The bulk of that being the trail maintenance that we budgeted, but hasn't occurred yet. On the system maintenance, we're running higher than budget. We were under budget through last month, but then we had significant lift station expenses for the month, and that brought for the year, that's 32,000 over budget, and puts us for the year about 8,000 overall over budget. On the parks and maintenance expenses, we're under budget on all of them. And then to the capital projects and outlay, the big expense that's in that is the meter replacement to AMI. That actually should be under the system maintenance because that's where we put the meter replacement program cap, and you create a new line item for that because it's not under the cap now. We're in the process of eliminating that. So I have that under the wrong subsection. But we have done very little on those projects yet year to date. So we're about 20,000 better than budget. It's actually 77 if we pull out the meter replacements and classify them in the other subheading. So for the year, for the month, we're about 75,000 better than budget. But again, 53 of that is the fire protection tax, so we're about 22,000 better than budget for the month. And for the year, it says year to date about 170, but pull out the 53, and we're about 117 better than budget bottom line through January. Moving on to page 11. The tax collections report, you can see that we're running about 1% ahead of last year's collection rate of a little over 91%. We're at 92%. As I said, that's good news. Last year we were just shy of hitting the 99%. We were within rounding, but and that was a substantial improvement over the prior year where we had a shortfall by several percent. Traditionally, the MUD has had no problems in achieving at least 99% collections, but because of COVID that first year, we were concerned about that last year. We exceeded what we budgeted, which was 98%, but this year we expect to be right back to our normal 99%. And as I've noted, we are ahead of our typical rate at this point. On the cash report, it's worth noting that we're making our bond payment for $7,200. That's due on March 1st. After we make that in the debt service fund, There's a bond payment due in September that includes the principal payment of over $182,000. We could make that right now and still have $107,000 remaining for debt service fund. There's a requirement to keep sufficient funds in the account, but your financial advisor, Chris Lane, is working that down, knowing that you're gonna pay off within 2 years. And so we have a smaller reserve sitting in that than we have in the past, sufficient to meet our present requirements and drawing us down to the point where we hope to have next to none left in there, that the amount that we levy in these final 2 years will be enough to pay the debt service exactly, but probably with a little bit more just to be safe. On page 13, the cash balance trend, you can see that the blue line in January dipped under the red line for the 6-month reserve, then spiked up as the tax funds came in. The long-term plan is to get above the black line for the 12-month reserve, but that's going to take a few years of running positive budgets to do so. The green, which is debt service, you can see that it spiked up as the tax monies started to come in, but then we're making a bond payment here. It also spiked up in January because the tax funds actually go into the tax account, which sits in the debt service fund, and then we have to move the money that belongs to the general operating fund to that fund. So that's one of the reasons that the blue line is jumping here in February as we make the tax transfer that's approved, that's in your packet for approval. Page 14 is the operating fund balance, and it shows, I've updated it with the audited operating fund balance under the budget area number 1 of 2,551,180. And so that meant that since you have a budgeted deficit of 146,000, you're forecasting that you'll end the year at a little over 2.4 million. Based on where we are now compared to budget, we're projecting that you'll end the year at a little above 2.5 million. Very early to say though, but that's based on the paradigm that we use, that we're looking at budget the rest of the way, expect to be at budget the rest of the way. That's the expectation. If we run over budget, then obviously that number will draw down. Pages 15 through 23 are the payment register for January, which would have been presented at the meeting that was canceled. And this was reviewed at the time. There were a couple of issues with some invoices that we've addressed. We're in process on getting some credit memos on the Infomark invoice, for example. But the grand total on that is $365,945.43.
Minus this, because we're not gonna do the alternates,
Okay.
so just take it off. For now.
So the Alterman check that
It's
we were
three.
holding.
It's 3 work orders, but I already
Oh.
totaled it up.
Okay.
They're
Well,
not
that was
credit
on,
month.
that's on, is that on that?
It's this month. Oh, you're talking about last month.
Yeah, I was
I'm sorry,
talking
I'm
about
jumping
that.
ahead.
There we go. Okay.
You're good.
So,
Michael, wait,
yes.
wait, you're going too fast.
I know,
Keep
I know.
up with you. Where is, never mind, I just found it.
What page?
It is on page 23.
23, so yes, the total
Is
that
the
I just
total, give
stated.
me the total again, please.
365,945.43. So that was the amount of checks and ACHs that occurred from the December 16th meeting, or from the day after the December 15th meeting, from December 16th through the projected date of the meeting, January 19th.
Michael, let me
Yes.
ask, please, and so you've made the corrections that I gave you, and you've credited back the Infomark invoices, it was almost $1,000 worth of mistakes?
The credits are in
There
process.
They're
They're
in the-
not through.
They're in the process, okay,
No, they're through. They're just not for his report. Melissa said we updated. this
okay,
afternoon.
okay.
Yeah.
Um,
They didn't get applied to the checks that are on this month because I didn't have them. at
Okay,
that point.
so we got those taken care of, the Infomark ones, and what about the one for Sage Management for $2,700 of additional services? How's that standing? We need to talk about that one.
Okay, let's,
Are you talking about the, which,
Odds and dumpsters.
So which is partially the prior year, which we have discussed before, but,
Well, actually, they all came on the January, bills and invoice package
that's
for
right.
the entire year of dumpsters.
That's correct.
And pod
The
signs.
calendar year, right.
And each pod and each dumpster was charged 1.5 hours without any letters or any photos shown to the board. And I had sent an email to Sage in July asking them if somebody had guaranteed them payment for pods and dumpsters, since they collect those photos during their normal tour. They don't come out here and make a special trip. During their normal tour, they're snapping photos. I assume snapping photos.
Yeah.
They're not sending letters though.
No,
Okay,
because,
so,
right,
so why on a normal tour, if they see, 5 pods and dumpsters, does it take an additional 1.5 hours during that tour to snap those photos for each pod and dumpster?
it's not just about, you know, taking photos. What part of what's going on is every single pod and dumpster ends up having an individual visit, I guess is the best way to
Well,
put it.
well, I also sent to the entire board the, meeting minutes from the month that they were hired initially, where the previous board gave real clear instructions on how to handle pods and dumpsters, which was treat it like any other violation, track it, send a friendly letter. 8 months later, the ACC issued a ruling on pods and dumpsters with exactly the same direction. Treat
Right,
it like a normal violation, send
Right.
a friendly letter.
right.
So why then, with instructions recorded in minutes and on an ACC, are they allowed to charge us an additional 1.5 hours per dumpster? There is no additional work involved. We don't need to know what people are using a pod and dumpster for,
It's not
that's not our
about-
business.
It's not about, the whole process, as it started, was they were supposed to be part of the friendly letter process.
Yes,
And you made a huge stink about it.
yes.
So they stopped sending the letters, but they still continued having the interaction with the residents, so that the residents understood that that their pods cannot stay here indefinitely. So there was still a lot of interaction that our vendor continued to have.
Well, that's part of that tour, Catherine, that's part of their contract, that's not additional. They didn't make an extra trip, and honestly, my stink about the pod and dumpsters does not overrule a board decision that's in
That they
writing.
were supposed to be paid for that service.
Well, why didn't somebody answer me in July? Why are we waiting a whole year and then dumping $2,700 for citing pods and dumpsters, which are not even contained in the deed? But even if I concede and say, okay, the decision made by the previous board, the ACC ruling that lives on the website about it, let's honor that, And then all they do is snap a photo and send a friendly letter on a pod and dumpster. It's like everything else, it's not a special service, it's no additional work. And if they stop and chit chat with residents about things, well, that's part of the service that sold you on hiring them. That's on them, not on us, it's part of their tour. So honestly, I asked about this in July, and then pods and dumpsters disappeared off the invoices. And I thought, well, they resolved it amongst themselves, I'm just gonna move on. I was not prepared to see 12 months of pods and dumpsters, 43 sightings, $2,700 additional because they saw a pod and dumpster while they were driving through the neighborhood. That's not reasonable by any
I
definition.
think it's a little, disingenuous to say they saw something, so they're going to,
Well, they saw the pod and dumpster,
yeah, and they recorded it, and they tracked
and they
it,
took a picture,
and they had interactions with the resident, which is actually the most important part of the process.
I don't know why, a friendly letter tells them you got 30 days, the end of the story. What you're using, that list on that invoice tells me it was an eviction, somebody was remodeling, somebody was moving in, somebody was moving out. We don't need that information. That information is not our business.
I agree that was too much information, TMI on the invoice, but that doesn't negate the fact that the services were rendered.
Well, I'm not suggesting that's incorrect, but they were rendered on a regular tour that is compensated by their base fee. There's nothing in their contract that says, we're gonna pay you 1.5 hours for every dumpster you see. There's nothing that leads to that. And let me be abundantly clear, I am so concerned about this because it happens every single month with this contractor, that I did send this to Zach, since I couldn't get an answer from Bill. I did send it to Zach today, and I asked him with the contract, please show me where this is okay to do, because that's a lot of money for a service that's already been defined for them on the day they were hired. It's in the minutes. And I sent it to all of you, so all of you see the same things I'm seeing. I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's okay to pay that money. I think they're taking advantage of it. I really do. I think they're taking advantage of this district because you guys are so willing to sign those checks every time. Look at their contract. Let's make them live to that contract. And if that's not working, we need to renegotiate the contract.
Okay, so we need a motion. Somebody needs to make a motion for $365,945.43. Art, you wanna do that?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Was it the January, check register?
Yes.
The January first,
Yeah, it's on page 23.
Right.
$355,945.
And right here, the new number. They had to credit back the errors I found.
Well, wait a minute, so it is a different number than what's on page
What's
23.
the same number?
Well, those are the checks that were actually issued. The credits that will be coming in will be applied on another payment register.
Okay, so we do need
So,
to do
but
what's on
we
23.
have that amount, it's done.
Yeah,
Do you want
This is the amount that was actually issued.
So that's what he needs to motion for, the
Correct.
full amount?
okay.
Everybody
Yeah.
motion?
Yeah, for the full amount, for the full amount.
So I motion to, this has already happened, right?
Yeah, yes.
I motion to approve the expenditure of $945,945.43 on the account register
For January,
for January.
okay. Somebody wanna give me a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
No.
All those, opposed?
No
Okay.
opposed.
Okay, that's fine. Keep going, Michael.
Okay, so then moving on to the payment register for this month, and that begins on page 24 and runs through page 32. And, let's see, we're going to flag. I do want to mention check 5478 to the Cedar Park Fire Department, which I did mention earlier, the fire protection expense, that's for $52,933. So we did pay that, I somehow must have got it put into the wrong period, and so I'll reclassify that so it shows up in January correctly.
And which ones are you holding out of the Infomark stack of invoices?
The alternate ones?
All three of them?
Correct, they're not being credited, they're just being researched.
And they're 35,000 each?
He has the number.
Yeah,
It's 36
and,
and change.
so on page 28, the Infomark invoice, check 5471, which is for invoice 1135754. The 6th, 7th, and 8th work orders on the lift station, and we talked about that the lift station was, had well over budget, it's because of these invoices. And there are 3 of them, one for 936482, that's the first work order, second one for 951957, and then the third one for 1756877. That totals to $36,453.16. So the proposal is to not approve check 5471 as presented. Net that out, the remainder is $19,534.19, and we'll issue a replacement check for that to be signed by the board.
Okay, so what's the final number then?
Okay, so let's get to that. Right now, it's showing 356, 147, 54. If we take out the 36, 453, 16, it becomes 319, 694, 38.
What's the, outcome of the, invoices, 19 of them, that were in question out of the February stack? I just sent it to you and Mackenzie today, apologize for the short notice.
All have been addressed with Catherine and Megan.
I need you to answer back to me when I give you something, because I'm tracking your work.
I understand that, but I was asked to give them the responses and they were on the Bills and Invoices Committee.
That
So
is fine, but
they
you
have the
answer to the
responses.
entire board, so please send me that response. Thank you. The Bills and Invoice Committee didn't catch the mistake, so I absolutely wanna record your findings. Then good, let me see your findings.
Okay,
Cameron, I need to make a comment because there is a real misunderstanding with our vendors that think they only have to answer to committees. They don't understand that this board is an equal governing body, and they answer to everyone, not just committees. That's a common problem we're having with the contractors that needs to be addressed. I'll ask Zach to handle that.
okay, so any other, okay, so I'll go ahead and make a motion, to approve the check register for February for $319,694.38. Could I have a second?
What was the amount again?
319, 694, 38.
Right,
That's the adjusted amount.
that's the
Yes.
adjusted amount, and just, somebody give me a second so I can keep talking. Okay, and it's my understanding that the big difference is this one invoice where they just, the
It's
There
ultimate.
are
Three
3 invoices on 3 work orders that are on 1 Infomark invoice.
Right,
And so we are going to,
We're referencing the work orders back to the work of their dates, their service dates on their invoice, that's all.
right, but it's coming from Alterman, right? And so they just didn't give you enough
My
information.
ops manager is getting with alternate,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
So
Catherine,
we're-
Alterman submitted 3 invoices that have, they, on their date, it says various dates.
Exactly.
It doesn't say what kind of work they performed, it doesn't say what they did, how they fixed it, it doesn't show the material that they
Yeah.
used.
We
Yeah.
discussed that yesterday.
And then I'm sure, and then, she does a work order that fills in the blanks for dates. Well, there's no way to take it back to the original work order that brought them into the district.
Which we talked about during our Bills and Invoices Committee.
Oh, good, then you should have all my answers.
So, but this is just, this is an example of the vendor who's billing us isn't being detailed enough
Correct.
in terms
and
of,
slow billing as well.
Correct.
And slow
And
bill.
it's not just WTC, it's any contractor that they, or that anywhere that we contract with them, so.
Then we just need to find another contractor who bills better. And we also need to have Infomark, Mackenzie, we need to have you looking at these things and not submitting any work orders that are that
I
incomplete.
actually researched all of the service dates from Alterman for those invoices before they came.
Why
in
didn't you
any of
just
them.
attach the original work order then?
Because I don't have all the work orders, which is what I just said, I contacted the ops manager who actually contracts with Alterman, calls them when we need them, and he's pulling the work orders.
it's complicated. There's a
Well,
lot
you
of
know,
moving pieces
It's
here.
for $1.2 million a year now is what we pay Infomark, and it takes 5 people to pull a report. That's
It's
pretty,
not a report, and it doesn't take 5 people.
that is exaggerated, of course, but,
Okay,
all right, so.
keep going.
We
Oh, wait a
have
minute,
the
we
vote.
haven't had it, we
Yeah,
want to talk
that voted
about
on that, and
Okay.
then, and you might wanna hold off and include the transfers with that, so let's walk through, if you want, or we can do those separately.
it. Okay, let's do those separately. You know,
Okay.
cause I've already done one.
Yes.
Okay, so, all those okay, any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed,
Okay,
we don't pay fraudulent billing here.
okay.
And we didn't.
Michael, which check am I not, or like, are we not signing? Which of the,
The Infomark one,
which, there's a couple.
do you know the format
Yes.
that it was before?
Yes, it's on page 28.
Well, Megan
The
has
check
the
total
checks.
was 55,987.35. The check
So
number
just
is
pull that one.
5471. So yeah, you can not sign, you can write anything you want on that, because it's dead, we'll be voiding it.
And then we'll reissue one with that amount.
I thought you guys talked about this
19,
yesterday.
534.19.
Why is the check in the stack if you talked about it yesterday?
We weren't pulling it from the sack yesterday, but we did talk about it yesterday.
Okay, keep going now, so then we can talk about our transfers.
Right. So on page 33 is the tax transfer, and you see it's, almost 2 million, total, or actually slightly over 2 million total. The bulk of that, 1.7 million moving into the operating account, the smaller section moving into the debt service account. Page 34 is the operating transfer, moving money, funds from the taxable operating account to your, checking account at Bancorp. And, in an amount of 224,000. And then, moving 70,000 from the, manager's account to the operating account to draw that down to where it should be. Page 36 is, and, is not exactly a transfer, but it is your bond payment letter, so I think them together, that's the 7,200 on your one remaining, bond, and that's just interest.
What's the balance of the bond?
That was in the audit, the principal balance is 360,000, that question was asked at the audit, so I believe we pay 175, this year,
In March?
in September, and then 185 the following year. It could be the reverse of that, though.
Okay.
It's, those are the two amounts.
And those are the two amounts to pay it off?
Yes, plus the interest.
And next year, is there another 7,200 in interest?
But let me state that at the bond payment in September, we'll have this 7,200 in interest, they do two, for the same amount, twice in a year. But you pay the principal once, so the total will be due, it was in the packet. It's,
Page 12?
yep, the cash report, where I detail that. So 182,200 will be the total amount being paid. So it's, the 175, I guess, is the principal amount.
Plus the 7,200.
Right, plus the 7,200. Unless I typoed that number on this.
And that you say is payable in September?
September, it's due September 1st, so
So-
you'll be approving at the August board meeting.
So tell me this, just by looking at your cash flow over the years, in September, will there be another additional 185,000 to pay off this bond?
That's what I was explaining when we were on page 12, where I said that you had 107,000 if you made that payment right now. So we'll have at least that much, plus whatever tax funds that we get that is allocated to that service fund, so it'll be a bit more than that, but yes.
So we would need about another 80,000 to pay off all the bonds.
Yes, and we already, you asked this question
Yeah,
a year or
last
so ago.
last year I did.
And, I'll re-forward it, but, the conclusion that was made at the time was that there would be no substantial savings for paying early.
Except we wouldn't pay the $7,200 in interest.
Twice
Next year. And because we're not earning any interest, it just doesn't make sense if you've got the money in the bank. Why, you're not earning any money, any interest on
Because
the money.
on bonds, it's more complicated than, your home loan or something.
Okay,
You are bound, limited in paying off early.
right, and we checked
There are
on that.
certain ways to do that, but, partially because the bondholders actually want their money as interest coming. So you have, to pay off early, you're going to have to do, some substantial outside, maneuvering. One is to buy slugs, there's ways to
There's
do
ways.
it. The point is that you'd asked this question previously, the financial advisor on the district ran the numbers and saw that there was no substantial savings. Now, I'll bring this back to her and see, now that the other two bonds are paid off, does it make
How does
that
it look
sense
now?
to move ahead?
Only because we're just not earning any money. There's no
That's
interest to
true.
be had, so by
Well,
paying,
interest rates are going up.
well, yeah, but not fast enough. And if you're paying $7,000 in interest and you're only earning $200, it
Tell me about
just
it.
doesn't make sense,
know.
but have her run the numbers, please.
Well, what are the limitations, what are the,
There's no penalties for us to do it, but she does have to do a little more paperwork.
Well, there'd end up being soft costs on doing this. That's part of the problem, soft costs that you would use to, partially, to create the financial structure in order to pay off early, would probably end up being more than the cost of the interest. But again, I'll be happy to throw this faster and see if those numbers have changed since the last time we discussed it. As I said, we paid off 2 bonds since then. That might make it better, it might make it worse. But-
It'd be interesting to know before we make that next payment.
I agree.
Okay, so you need a motion, is that what you're saying, for every single transfer?
For the transfers and the bond payment,
Okay. Okay. Somebody wanna do that?
I'll make a motion. I
Okay.
make a motion that we accept, Michael's transfer documents and his bond payment in the packet. And he make those transfers and that bond payment.
Okay, I'll second that. Do we have any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Okay, keep going, Michael.
okay, then page 37 shows the open records request, and you can see they're tailing off a bit for the year. We're substantially behind what it was costing last year. And then the last 2 pages, I'm tracking the do not exceed on the 40,000 for the parks plan and parks plan implementation. At this point, it's just the plan. It does include almost $78 for FedEx printing of large-scale maps for the parks plan. So,
You're missing a HERB expense on here of $500 early on. I don't know, you attended a meeting or something, early when this plan first started. I'll pull his invoice.
if that was before this fiscal year, then it's irrelevant. But if it's part of this fiscal year,
It's,
then you're correct, it does go there.
It is part of this plan and you track.
This
the-
budget is for the plan this year. It is not for the
Oh,
plan
it's
from
not.
before.
Oh.
Yeah, this is
Well-
literally the 40K that was budgeted by the board, the entire board, voting for the budget to include this item for this year.
Mhm. It's got the park master plan on it.
And also, that's
It's
the
a-
term we
it's-
use for it, but it does include implementation. If the plan is complete and there are
Sure.
things that they wanna do,
Right.
that's capped by the 40,000 as well.
Right, well, I'm telling you that there are additional expenses related to the park master plan that need to be included in this not to exceed.
And what are those, is what I'm asking.
I told you, there's a $500 meeting expense from her way back when. I
Way
was-
back when, before October 1st,
Yes.
is irrelevant to this year's budget.
How are you
That
tracking?
was in last year's budget. I'm confused why you're having an issue with this.
Why are you got?
This is for FY 22.
Okay.
There's 40,000 allocated for this. You identified that there was some